I'm finding I'm really starting to enjoy the process of identifying locations to have EV road trips to, the process of planning those trips, and then actually going out on the adventure. I do a work from home job. I'm an office worker that is full remote. So during the work week, I'm home all day, every day. I venture out a little bit, but not much. So these trips I find are something that I really have ended up looking forward to. The trip this week was to a location I've had my eye on for a while. It's called Dry Falls. It's maintained by the United States Forestry Service, and the Forestry Service normally has four roads throughout their property, just kind of like dirt roads, where they like knock down the trees and they just have a dirt road. It's good for people on dirt bikes, trucks, or off-road vehicles. It's not really meant for people driving around in Teslas. In this particular location, there's something called a scenic byway that the U.S. Forestry Service maintains. And then they also have this recreational area. And normally when you go to a waterfall, you have to hike on a dirt trail for a mile, sometimes two, in order to get to the waterfall. But here, you just pull right up off the road. There's a parking area, and then paved walkways all the way to the waterfall, which is pretty darn cool. The walkway also goes behind the waterfall, which is different, and so you get to see the water falling in front of you instead of from a distance. Definitely up close and personal. So that was pretty cool. We had a weather event occur just during this trip. It was actually happened while I was out on the road. Something called a bomb cyclone was occurring in the United States, which was a mass of Siberian Arctic air intruding into the lower 48 from a dip in the jet stream that ran up against a bunch of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. And apparently meteorologists call that a bomb cyclone. And for us, what it ended up being was a pretty quick drop in temperature. We didn't really get any snow out of it, but we did get the drop in temperature. And as I was coming down this road to Dry Falls, there was a young boy who flagged me down, and he said, if you go to the waterfall, don't lock your doors because the locks will freeze. And I said, oh, okay. And then just a little bit further up, I saw a couple other kids and a parent. It was a father holding an infant, and he flagged me down. And he said, I can't get into my car, and it's really cold out here. Do you mind if we come in your car just to warm up? And I said, sure, absolutely. Come on in. So the three kids, the infant, and the father hopped in the car, and a bit of a crisis situation, but they warmed up pretty quick. I threw some DC movie on the iPad in order to calm the kids down, and the father handed me his key fob, and we put it on the dashboard, and the sunlight warmed it up for about 10 minutes. Then he went out and tried again, and the doors popped open, crisis averted. But people in this area are definitely not used to temperatures during the daytime in the single digits, and wind chill temperatures below zero. It's definitely unusual in this area of the country. In order to get to Dry Falls, there's a couple of ways to get there. The recommended shortest route is this one right here, which goes through a city called Brevard, North Carolina, which is famous as kind of like a tourist destination. You could enter the Pisgah National Forest through Brevard. There's lots of hotels and restaurants and touristy type of things to do around there. The business end of Brevard is that the U.S. Forestry Service has their North Carolina office in Brevard. Right there. So that's what its claim to fame is. It's just there's not a lot of chargers along this route. So I had two alternates, this one through South Carolina, Spartanburg, and then through the northern portion of the upstate of South Carolina, and then taking this mountainous road up into the mountains. Or I could go up into Asheville and then come down from the north into Dry Falls, and that's the one I actually ended up doing. The reason being is in this town right here in Franklin, there's a pair of DC fast chargers that I wanted to check out, and conveniently located for this trip. So when I started out, I knew the cold weather was coming, so I got an early start, and it was 48 degrees, which is pretty good weather for road tripping. And I started heading down the road, which in my case was southbound mostly, and no change in elevation, but I dropped almost 10 degrees in an hour. And then in the next half hour, it dropped another 10 degrees. So we were getting a really steady drop in temperature. And by the time I actually made it to Dry Falls, it was in the single digits. It was 9 degrees and a stiff wind, adding to the wind chill temperatures below zero for sure. It was very cold. So the first charging stop was kind of cool. There's a nondescript Marathon gas station off Interstate 26, which from the outside doesn't look like anything but a normal rundown convenience store. But on the backside of the property are these two really nice Duke Energy DC fast chargers that I was able to pull 84 kilowatts off of. And as part of their Park and Plug program, they've been installing these in communities throughout the areas that they service. Duke Energy is a really large energy company here in the Southeast. They've got a high-rise tower in downtown Charlotte. They're very big. And these DC fast chargers have been going in quite frequently. There's two that are getting ready to be turned on in just about a month, and these were turned on earlier this year. So it's pretty cool to see these things coming around. But the convenience store was really kind of unique. The convenience store had beer on tap, which I don't think I've ever seen in a convenience store before. They had a bartender and beer on tap. And they also had a way of canning the beer if you wanted to take some tap beer with you. Perfectly legal, apparently, according to the bartender. So anyway, that was pretty cool. Plus, they had made-to-order pizzas, they had cheeseburgers, they had sandwiches with cold cuts. All in all, it was an unusual convenience store, but apparently they're catering to the clientele of the people at the charger who generally have higher-end vehicles. So being able to be stuck in a location where your car is charging and then go into the convenience store and sit around the bar and chat to the bartender. They had little bistro tables spread around where you could relax and eat some snacks with. So anyway, I was pleasantly surprised. Oh, and here's the beer list, craft beers that you get to choose from. And look, there's a rule that you could only have 2 to 3 pints because they're not going to send you down the road after having 10. So apparently that's the agreement that came with the local sheriff or law enforcement. This guy's name is Tom. He was the bartender.
And how you can them?
Yeah, we fill them up,
Yep.
put the lid on, lift it up, turn it on, and these seal it.
Okay, and it comes out of the tap, right?
Yes, sir.
So anyway, you wouldn't expect to see something like this in a convenience store, but there it was, full bar with a bartender. And you can see these snacks that they have available as well. It was pretty cool. The road trip was uneventful as far as weather goes. Right up here in the higher elevations, you see a little bit of dusting, but on the road surface and in the ground, there was no snow whatsoever. For us, the weather event was just a dip in temperature. Yep, right there. You can see a little bit of snow right there. That's the extent of the snow emergency for us, but you have to climb up to the peak of the mountain to even see the dusting. But it sure was pretty. Anytime I get a chance to go to Western North Carolina and just drive around, it's a good day. Really pretty scenery. And as I said, I was trying to get to the 2 DC fast chargers in the town of Franklin, which is a small town. And let me see if I can pull it up on the map real quick. Let's go to this map. All right, so Franklin is right here, the town of Franklin. And if you look at this squiggly line indicates the border between South Carolina and Georgia. So the town of Franklin is in western North Carolina, near the borders of Georgia and South Carolina. And another way of saying that is the town of Franklin is near nothing. There's absolutely nothing around there. I mean, there was some billboards there that seem to be catering towards people from Georgia, so I guess people from Atlanta come cruising into Franklin to get old town feel or something. I don't know. But I honestly don't know how the town's surviving, but it seems to be thriving. The downtown was very vibrant. The DC fast chargers were pretty cool, and I'll show those here in just a second. There they are. And the temperature when I took this picture was single digits with a stiff wind, so it was very cold. I stayed in my car, ate a sandwich. There was restrooms available in the town hall, which is immediately adjoining this charging stop. And those DC fast chargers are the same Duke Energy Park and Plug DC fast chargers as the last stop in Saluda, North Carolina. Again, pulling 84 kilowatts, really nicely maintained DC fast chargers. I'm not sure when these went in, but they look relatively new also. Here's the transformer for them in downtown Franklin. So no problem whatsoever. And the problem really wasn't getting a charge to get to my location in the Forestry Service property. It was getting past that and getting to a charger afterwards. I think when I was in the Forestry Service property, I was right around 70%, maybe 65. So I had a good state of charge. The trick was getting out of there and getting back to a charger. And I didn't want to come back to Franklin, so I went through the Brevard route, which meant I needed to have a good state of charge to get through all the slow mountain roads and get back to a DC fast charger. There were lots of pull-offs on the scenic byway maintained by the Forestry Service, and I took the opportunity to capture some video. This is not Dry Falls, but this is leading up to it. And all this ice had formed in just the past few hours because the day previous it was in the 40s or 50s. It was not cold enough to make that ice, especially being hit by sun. So all this ice had just formed in the past few hours. Western North Carolina is known for whitewater activities like rafting and tubing and whatnot, and I understand this area has a good deal of activity in the summertime around that. And you'll see in the next spot there's like looks kind of like a slide, the way the rock features are laid out. There it is. That looks like a ton of fun in the summertime. I was there when it was single digits and it was freezing, so I was not going anywhere near the water. The Forestry Service maintains several forests in North Carolina. This is the Nantahala National Forest. There's also the Cherokee National Forest, and I mentioned before the Pisgah National Forest is the large one. There's one or two others. I forgot their names. And there it is. I made it to Dry Falls, and as I said, there was the family in crisis, but after they got warmed up and the infant got some heat on their skin, everything seemed to be fine. And off they went to enjoy the rest of their Christmas weekend. Here's a picture of Dry Falls, and you wouldn't know it from the picture. It kind of looks like a nice spring day because of the vegetation still being green, but that was cold, and there was something about the air temperature being single digits, plus the wind chill, plus this mist that's happening, which I think has an additional cooling effect. When I took my gloves off to take the iPhone pictures, they numbed up pretty quick. It was really ridiculously cold there. Pulled out the phone to see what the actual temperature was, and it was 9. The town of Highlands is close by, so that's where it placed me, but I was in no man's land Forestry Service property. And there's going to be several videos of the waterfall from different angles, so if that's not your thing, feel free to move on to different videos. I'm doing it just for my personal enjoyment, and if anyone else likes the video of beautiful nature in the wintertime, I found it just really fascinating and something I was just able to wander around and take from different vantage points. Really was a sight. And all this ice and icicles had just formed in the past few hours during the Siberian air intruding into the area and causing the precipitous temperature drop. Made for a real kind of like a crystallized ice castle effect.
Currently, below 10 degrees, I think it's at 9 degrees. For sure, without a shadow of a doubt, the wrong day to come to a walk behind waterfall. Woo! Look at that. We are going back there where all that ice is.
Yeah, so here's where I walk actually behind the waterfall, and it looks like all these water droplets are going to start hitting you in the face, but that's not actually how it pans out. All that's back here is a little bit of mist, but it didn't stick to your skin or anything. It's not like you get wet back here, and it's really cool. The ice on the fence is just from the mist building up in the single-digit temperatures. You could walk back there and not get wet just fine, so it's actually not that big of a deal. And there's the ice accumulation on the vegetation and rocks surrounding the waterfall. Really pretty. I was trying to capture a rainbow, and right here you could kind of see it, but the video didn't do it justice. But hanging in the mist in front of the waterfall was this really pretty rainbow. This is the end of the trail on the opposite side of the waterfall. That's as far as they let you go, and then you have to circle on back. And here you can see that this is the first layer that the waterfall hits, but it actually goes further down into the basin, which is lower. From underneath, with the icicles hanging off the ledge of the waterfall on the underside, this is pretty cool. This is, again, inside the waterfall, looking out towards the front. There's a rhododendron getting coated in ice from the mist of the waterfall. And there's a still shot of it, showing the mist and the water and the ice. Very beautiful. Kind of dreamy. Still shot of falling water. Kind of a classic photographer's subject. Behind the waterfall was this little nook. You had to get down on all fours to get in there, and then you had to sit cross-legs or sit down on the ground once you got in there. But it was dry. The water didn't get back there. And kind of cool to just sit there, relax, meditate, and watch the falling water and the thundering sound of it in front of you. Cool spot. On the way out, there was a secondary falls, much smaller, but it had all these ice features hanging off the wall that I thought was really pretty. The picture doesn't really do it justice. When you're walking along there, it's got a very ethereal feel to it, and the ground was all frozen. There it is, Dry Falls. Again, not near much. And my return trip brought me through Cashiers and the town of Brevard, and then back up, and I stopped to see Tom at the DC Fast Charger in Saluda, but his shift had already ended, and Matthew was there attending bar at the time. So I got myself a cheeseburger and chatted with him while the car recharged, and then headed on back to Concord. All in all, a really fun trip.